And worried about your health. I read by the papers you had this surgery, this operation.
Yeah, but that helped a lot. And I highly recommend it to people who've had the same problems that I had because I'm better now.
Well, what were the problems?
The phone calls started flooding in around 2 a.m. Panicked fans, crying relatives, news outlets scrambling for confirmation. Is Willie Nelson dead? Social media exploded with death hoax rumors in January 2025. And for a heart-stopping moment, the world thought it had lost its last living outlaw. But Willie Nelson didn't die that night. He's still here, still breathing, still picking that beaten-up guitar at 92 years old. Yet those false death reports revealed something chilling. We're already mourning him while he's alive. Because deep down, everyone knows we're watching the final act of American music's greatest survivor. A man who's buried his son, his sister, his bandmates, and now stands completely alone as the last of the legendary Highwaymen. If Willie's voice has ever been the soundtrack to your heartbreak, smash that like button right now. Some children are born into love. Others are born into abandonment so complete, it shapes every breath they take forever. Willie Hugh Nelson arrived April 29, 1933, in the forgotten dust of Abbott, Texas, but his parents checked out long before he could walk. His mother, Myrle, didn't just leave, she evaporated, abandoning Willie and sister Bobby when they were barely toddlers. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. His father, Ira, remarried and started fresh, effectively erasing his children like mistakes on a chalkboard. The only light was his grandfather, William Alfred Nelson, a weathered blacksmith who took in the discarded children. This gentle giant became Willie's universe, placing that first guitar in tiny hands and showing him pain could become music. But even that mercy was temporary. When Willie was 6, pneumonia stole his grandfather away, leaving him orphaned in every way that mattered. There was always that silence, Willie wrote decades later. I filled it with song because no one else was talking to me. Picture a 7-year-old boy sitting alone in a house that echoed with absence, teaching himself guitar chords not for fun, but survival. While other kids played with toys, Willie clung to that guitar like oxygen. By age 9, he was performing in honky-tonks and churches, not chasing stardom but connection, desperate for someone to listen. Every song he'd ever write carried the DNA of that abandoned boy, still asking why love always leaves. The Texas heat doesn't just warm, it punishes. For teenage Willie Nelson, that blazing sun became part of brutal survival education. By 14, he was bent over cotton fields, fingers bleeding, back screaming, picking someone else's crop just to eat. He cycled through jobs like a man possessed: tree trimmer, encyclopedia salesman, DJ, dishwasher, nightclub bouncer. Each paycheck bought another week of not starving. Nashville, that glittering promised land every country dreamer chases, treated Willie like a leper. Record labels slammed doors, producers dismissed his weathered voice as unmarketable. Critics said his look was wrong. No pompadour, no rhinestone suits, just braided hair and eyes that had seen too much pain too young. The breaking point came in his 20s, living in a trailer near a cemetery, drowning rejection in cheap whiskey. One night, Willie walked into the middle of a busy street and simply laid down. Not to make a statement, just because he didn't know what else to do with accumulated pain. Cars swerved around him like roadkill. Nobody stopped. Nobody cared. Was I relieved? Disappointed? Can't say for sure, he later wrote. All I know is, I got up, walked back to the bar, and had another drink. That moment, Willie Nelson lying in the road, invisible to a world that drove around him, forged something unbreakable in his soul. While Willie's dreams were getting crushed, his genius was secretly changing music forever. He just wouldn't see a penny. In 1959, broke with a baby on the way, he wrote Family Bible, inspired by his grandmother's hymns. Desperate for grocery money, he sold complete rights for $50. The song became a massive hit for Claude Gray, but Willie's name wasn't even mentioned. This became his personal hell for years. Crazy, one of the most haunting love songs ever written, made Patsy Cline a legend while Willie watched from dive bars. Funny How Time Slips Away turned Billy Walker into a star. Pretty Paper became Roy Orbison's Christmas classic. These weren't just songs, they were pieces of Willie's soul, sold off like furniture because rent was due. Nashville producers would literally tell him, "Great songs, kid, but you don't have the right look to sing them." They wanted his diary entries, but not his voice. Imagine watching strangers become millionaires performing your most intimate thoughts, while executives tell you your own story isn't worth hearing. Willie was building something they couldn't steal, authenticity that would burn their fake system down. By 1972, Nashville rendered its final verdict: Willie Nelson was finished. Too rough, too real, too rebellious. When RCA dropped him, it felt like a death sentence. But sometimes losing everything reveals who you really are. At 39, with dreams in ashes and his ranch literally burned down, Willie made a decision that changed music history. He drove back to Texas. Austin in the early 70s was beautiful chaos. Long-haired hippies sat beside weathered cowboys in tiny venues that cared only about truth. When Willie walked into those smoky bars, battle-scarred but unbroken, they recognized what Nashville never did: a genuine outlaw. In 1973, he released Shotgun Willie, an album that refused to apologize. Raw, honest, defiant, Willie unleashed. Then came Red-Headed Stranger in 1975. Executives called it unmarketable, too quiet, too sparse, too strange. They were spectacularly wrong. That stripped-down masterpiece whispered, and the entire world leaned in. Multi-platinum success followed, and suddenly, the man they'd written off was leading a revolution. Joining Waylon Jennings, Jesse Coulter, and Tom Paul Glasser, they created Wanted, The Outlaws, the first platinum country album in history. They weren't just making music, they were rewriting rules. Willie grew his hair, wore what he wanted, smoked what he pleased, and played like a man reborn. The outlaw movement became permission for every misfit to stop fitting molds and start building their own stages. But success couldn't protect Willie from brutal irony waiting at home. Just as his career soared, personal life imploded. He was married to Shirley Colley, a fellow singer who'd believed in him through poverty and rejection. Then she opened a hospital bill by mistake, addressed to Mrs. Connie Nelson for baby girl Paula's delivery. In one devastating moment, Shirley understood her marriage was built on lies. When confronted, Willie tried deflecting. Finally, defeated, he whispered truth. "Connie's my girlfriend. Paula's our daughter." That confession didn't just end a marriage. It shattered whatever trust Willie had left in himself. The guilt would follow him for decades. Just when Willie thought he'd survived every disaster, the cruelest blow arrived in his mailbox. The 1990s brought a letter like a death sentence. The IRS demanding $16.7 million in unpaid taxes. Years of trusting wrong advisors had caught up. Federal agents raided his home, seizing everything: recording equipment, memorabilia, even Trigger, his beloved guitar. But instead of hiding or bankruptcy, Willie did something extraordinary. He recorded the IRS tapes, "Who'll Buy My Memories," and sold it directly through late-night infomercials. Picture Willie in a bare-bones studio, literally selling his memories to buy back his future. America responded with pure love. Fans didn't buy from pity. They bought from gratitude for nights his songs had saved them. Dollar by dollar, Willie chipped away at impossible debt. By mid-90s, most was paid, Trigger was back, and Willie had reminded the world that authentic connection beats any marketing machine. But the most devastating loss was still coming. Christmas Day, 1991. While families opened presents, Willie Nelson received the phone call that shattered something inside forever. His firstborn son, Billy Nelson, had died by suicide at age 33 in his Tennessee cabin. Billy had struggled with depression and alcohol, fighting demons nobody could see. "I've never experienced anything so devastating in my life," Willie said, words carrying weight that made grown men weep. "There are no songs for that kind of pain. No melody for such silence. For years afterward, every note Willie played carried an echo of Billy's voice. Every Christmas became a reminder of an empty chair. He stopped playing holiday shows for years, and when he returned, fans could hear it. A pause where there never used to be one. The losses kept cascading like merciless tide. In 2020, Paul English died. Not just Willie's drummer, but bodyguard, enforcer, and brother. Paul had been there since 1955, keeping chaos at bay while Willie focused on music. When that steady beat stopped, something in Willie's rhythm fell silent forever. 2 years later, his sister Bobby passed away. She wasn't just family. She was his first duet partner, childhood survival companion, the only other person who remembered being abandoned by parents. When Bobby died, Willie lost the keeper of his earliest memories, the witness to everything he'd been before fame. Then came September 2024 and final devastation. Chris Christopherson died at 88, taking Willie's last connection to the brotherhood that defined his career. Together with Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings, they'd formed the Highwaymen, outlaws who didn't just sing about freedom, but lived it. Now Willie stands completely alone as the last surviving highwayman, carrying not just his own memories, but theirs too. At 92, Willie Nelson's body is finally betraying him. The 2024 tour brought frightening cancellations that sent shockwaves through his fan base. Shows were called off with vague illness statements, fueling genuine fear that time was finally winning. Those January 2025 death hoax rumors grew from real anxiety about Willie's mortality. The man who started smoking at 6 is paying the ultimate price.